Hello and welcome to the LRM podcast in association with Britpart. I'm Martin Dominy.
And I'm Steve Miller.
And this is a podcast where we talk about Land Rovers and everything to do with owning them. So what's new with you then? What have you been up to this week?
Well, I have been cleaning my Land Rover.
Cleaning it?
Cleaning it.
Is it particularly... I don't think I've ever seen your Land Rover dirty, to be honest, Steve.
No, but do you know what? This is the first Land Rover I've actually wanted to polish because the paintwork is so nice and original.
Yeah, it is clean, isn't it? Considering it's a 2002, isn't it?
It's 2002. Yeah. It's never been repainted. It's the original paint and I've just kept on top of it.
It's rare to see one that old that's still, all original paint, hasn't had any accident damage touched in or anything like that.
No.
It hasn't got loads of bubbling everywhere, so I can sort of see where you're coming from.
I mean, there are areas of bubbling, which is quite frustrating because you can't really do much with it unless you think. I don't know if a body shop could patch those bits up, but never looked into it.
It's hard because I suppose when, paint does age and it changes colour with the time. So if you were to have certain parts of it redone in new Coniston green, it would be quite obvious, I think.
Definitely. I think you can tell a resprayed Land Rover.
Yeah, well, certainly when bits of it have been resprayed because they don't quite match. It's even worse with cars with plastic bumpers and things like that because getting the paint right on metal and plastic when they're next to each other is nigh on impossible.
Yeah.
But you don't really have that issue with a Defender, I suppose.
Not really. Have you ever painted your own Land Rover?
I've helped paint the Land Rover, not my own.
See, I have, and it's the hardest thing in the world.
What did you use? Was it a brush or a roller? Or...
No, it looked like it. I didn't want to spray 2-pack paint because I don't have those kind of places available to me. I don't have a proper booth.
Is 2-pack paint the poisonous one?
Yeah, isocyanites in it, and you need respiratory masks, and you're not supposed to let it go to the environment. Well, I had a source of a paint shop that would still sell cellulose,
right,
which is a really old classic car paint, and it looked really, really good for about 5 minutes before it turned into a matte, like a satin finish. And then it cracked. So it had crazy paving finish.
It shrunk.
Why
do you think it did that?
Well, I can tell you why. Because it took me that long to do the prep work, all the sanding, the filling, etc. By the time I painted it, it was too late in the day, and it was in a damp old shed.
Right.
But it wasn't damp. The sun sets, and then it was essentially drying in a summertime in the evening where things get a bit damp, and
you've got to worry about the dew point.
The dew point, yes. Well, I learned about the dew point after the event, and
Oh, that's a shame. Did you do it again, or did you leave it as it was?
I left it, and I called it patina. It's worth more than patina.
A lot of that going around, isn't there?
Yeah, the patina.
Some more genuine than others, I think.
Yes, but this looked not great.
I've got the quandary at the moment of my Series 3, the tub, the current tub, the original tub, has got a load of filler in the side. Someone's given it a quick... It's either got corroded or dented and someone's put loads of filler in the side and the filler just keeps falling out in chunks. But I don't know whether to repair that tub and keep it, original to the vehicle, or I have bought another second-hand 109 tub, which is a lot straighter, but I need to do the mounting points on that, so I don't really know the best way to go with it.
I had a very similar a few years ago when I bought that Stage 1 V8. I remember reading about it in Land Rover Monthly.
The cover, was it not?
It was when we were rebuilding it on the rolling chassis, yes. And it too had in its day brand new doors, and the wings had all been repainted. The guy had painted it professionally up until the rear tub because that too had filler in it.
Right.
And he DA sanded it down to bare aluminium and patches of filler. But then if I painted that, the front had been painted so long ago, that was all faded. And before you know it, you're in for a respray.
Yeah, there's that very fine line between you either accept flaws and you make it obvious that they're flaws, or you go for the whole hog and, do everything fresh again. The difficulty is people can see through it very easily if you've, like you say, tried to make something look really nice, but you've missed areas or haven't done areas. That's more obvious than an all-around slightly shabby car.
Yeah, but shabby with age and use rather than just scruffy. There's a difference.
Oh yeah, there is definitely.
It's like the patina word gets overused, doesn't it? We see this in adverts and vehicles for sale quite a lot, don't we?
Yeah, But again, that's because it's a word that it's a bit like barn find. People throw that around like there's no tomorrow.
There's
Don't
more
they?
barn find vehicles than there are barns.
There's like memes and things about barn find dust. You could buy a jar of barn find dust to sprinkle over your car and it'll make it worth more. But it is overused. You see people, adverts, barn find, and it's clearly on a driveway or it's in a carport, and it's like, they're very different things.
There was recent, probably within the last 12 months, there was an episode of Bangers and Cash. I don't know if you've ever watched the auction programme.
Yeah, I've seen it once
on Yesterday channel. Really good. I'm addicted to it. And they had an Escort, I think it was a Mark 1 or Mark 2 Escort, barn finds, and the chap then decided, he paid really strong money for it, and I think the chap decided to not do the project, and he made the critical mistake of washing it before resubmitting it.
Right, okay.
And Dave, I think the auction owner, he's obviously the TV star then, said he's washed the value out of it.
Right.
Do not wash a barn find car.
Yeah, I can see, how that would make a difference. It's a job to know, isn't it? There's so many, there's quite a lot of interesting stuff for sale at the moment. I was actually looking earlier at a Discovery 3 V8. So ULEZ compliant, quite
nice.
Really, I love the Discovery 3 V8s. They're such a nice pairing. That engine is just so much low down torque and so smooth, and it's cheap. It's got suspension fault, which I could sort.
Okay.
Without too much trouble.
How cheap is cheap?
Well, it's up for 2.5, but you could make an offer on that, couldn't you?
2.5. How many miles?
It's quite high. It's done 180 odd, I think. Oof. But they wear it quite well.
Yeah, they do. You just get Discovery 3 do look good on miles. If they've certainly been dealer serviced and looked after through the years, 180,000, well, find me one with fewer miles on. It's not really. I mean, it's a 20-year-old car now.
Well, exactly. And actually, you're probably better off buying one with decent, a fair few miles on it than one that's been sat around for months at a time doing nothing.
It's only averaged 9,000 miles a year. It's quite low.
You sound like someone selling one. That's what a lot of adverts. Low mileage for a year, only 9,000 a year.
I am not.
Yeah, but it is 20 odd years old. So, but the other thing, of course, is a lot of people are breaking Discovery 3s now because of engine failure or whatever. So you could pick up interior parts and panels and stuff quite easily.
Yeah, I have seen a few at our spares days at Newbury.
Yeah, it's numbers with more modern stuff, which is kind of good to see, really, because people are running these as enthusiast cars now, and if you need bits, then spares days are a great place to get them.
Well, yeah, plenty of choice.
Absolutely. In other news, the Spider is back. Have you heard? Did I tell you about the Spider?
I presume you're not talking about an Alpha Spider here.
No. My Freelander 2 has a Spider living in it. It's been in there years, and well, I think it's been in there years, unless there's more than one. But it's up in the behind the headliner. And I only ever see it when I'm driving. So I'll be driving along, and then the top right-hand corner of the windscreen, it seems to be its like hangout place. It'll appear. It'll sometimes crawl a little way across the headliner. I will then try to get rid of it, but I can't because I'm driving, and I, can't always pull over and deal with the thing. By the time I have pulled over, it's gone back behind the headliner. But I know it's in there because every time I park the car up for a few days or a week, I'll come in and there'll be cobwebs all around the windscreen.
See, I too have a spider story, and in my 90, there's a spider that lives in the top right-hand corner.
It must be a Land Rover thing. I think a lot of Land Rovers do have some sort of creature living in them.
I think any car, I would not have a spider living in there, but a Land Rover seems to be, I don't know, kind of like, I don't mind.
I suppose there's enough places for it to stay out of the way in a Land Rover without really causing you issues, but this thing in the Freelander is a fairly chunky spider. It's not like a little, the spindly ones with the long legs that don't really bother you. It looks like it's the sort of thing you don't want living in your car, really. But again, I'm having issues. He's proving elusive.
See, the one I have has had a family.
Really?
I saw the other day. In fact, I think I was en route to Malvern, our Malvern 2 days show. And these tiny spiders were in the web in the corner. I thought, that's interesting. I've seen like the mum or the dad before.
Right.
And then the mum came out. Oh, let's say it's the mum. It must be.
But they're bigger, aren't they, females?
Yes, but a lot bigger than it was. So it's having a lovely time. However,
there's clearly a lot of flies and good stuff to eat.
Yes, probably. And but the thing is, the Spider's at that size where it's almost on a point where I don't want it there anymore.
Yeah.
Because I don't like Spiders.
But you can't kick it out now. It's got a family. You can't serve it in eviction.
So they make me feel guilty.
It'll have to get down the council, won't it, if you kick it out your Land Rover? It'd be bad news.
Let's have another spider story then. So years ago, you talk about barn finds and spiders. I bought a lightweight Land Rover barn find.
Genuine barn find?
Well,
not like a lean-to or under a plastic sheet?
No. So somebody that used to work with my wife said, "Oh, you're into Land Rovers?" I said, "Well, yeah."
That's always a sentence you want to hear, isn't
Yes, definitely. And next thing, Izzy, her name. So Izzy started telling me about her first Land Rover was a lightweight. I was like, "Oh, nice. Yeah, I had a lightweight for my first Land Rover." And then she said, "But I've still got it."
Oh, nice.
Okay. So she said, "I haven't driven it. Hasn't moved for years. It's in the barn at her mum and dad's house." And I'm thinking of selling it, but I only want it to go to a good home. Well, of course.
How did it end up with you then?
Yeah. Well, so I didn't want... We talked about this the other day. Land Rovers you don't look for Land Rover. They tend to find you.
Cats.
Yeah, so I couldn't resist the temptation. So I drove over and their house was absolutely amazing. And obviously this girl was into horses and turned up. Yes, it was a barn, but the most beautiful barn complex you've ever seen.
A barn complex?
Not
just a
stable
down shed?
No. And there was this lightweight and it looked like it had just been parked in there yesterday and been in there 9 years, didn't turn a wheel. That was about 10 years ago. But inside was a load of cobwebs. So when we recommissioned the Land Rover, and in fact it had to have a half chassis on it and new brakes, etc. Eventually MOT'd it, drove it for, I don't know, a year. Then I needed to move. I had too many Land Rovers, decided to sell it. When I sold it, the same cobwebs were still in there. And I used the cobwebs as a selling point.
That's almost like your barn find dust. So cobwebs, I've never
cobwebs. I said to the chap, these cobwebs were as it was found in the barn. And I said, you can buy the Land Rover, providing you don't get rid of them. And he agreed.
Wow. Well, so, looks like they should have their own part number by that point, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, I don't recall seeing spiders in it, but it just felt right to take that car.
Did you drive it around with cobwebs in it?
Yeah, I never swept it out.
Really?
Just left it.
Wow.
I just did. Yeah. It's only, I don't like spiders.
I don't mind them, but when they appear when you're doing 70 down the motorway and hang in front of your face, that's
70, that's a novelty.
Freelander 2, mate. Absolute dream machine.
Yeah. Yeah.
You don't, you stick with your Defender. I'll have comfort.
I will do 70.
Yeah, but you know about it.
I know about it. I was over 50, to be honest with you. I'm still too tall for Land Rover.
I think now you've had it remapped, you should gear it up a little bit.
Yeah. But we talked about wheels and tyres the other day, weren't we? In our, what was that, our first
debut podcast?
Yeah, debut podcast. And nice to have some feedback, actually, about the podcast.
Yeah, definitely. It seems like
positive feedback as well.
The few people that have listened to it thought it was all right, so that's good.
Yeah.
We'll carry on with it.
Yeah, I reckon there's some negatives out there somewhere, but we don't want those.
Well, it's unusual because normally it's those you hear the loudest, but to date, I haven't heard anything.
No.
Maybe they're getting the email address wrong or something.
Yes. What is that email address for questions?
If you've got questions, please, editorial@lrm.co.uk, and we'll answer them on the podcast.
What I found interesting, though, some of the feedback I've had has actually got people thinking about wheels and tyres.
Oh, really?
I reckon we've cost people money.
Well,
they've gone out and bought wheels and tyres and started to think.
Of the nature of anyone, though, who's into Land Rovers, talking to anyone else who's into Land Rovers, you're just a completely awful influence, basically. It's the way of the world, isn't it?
Yeah, I try not to get too influenced. I mean, you talking about Discovery 3s and V8s. Oh, they're two really lovely things right there.
I don't know why you wouldn't want one.
Well,
it's like all the best bits of a Discovery 3, but without the constant worry of the oil pump drive shearing off or it snapping its crankshaft. Or, of course, you've got to deal with all the worn-out bushes and the park brake module and all the other stuff.
Oh, you'd have to deal with that because you're the mechanic.
Well, okay, but that sort of stuff's second nature to a lot of people now because it's so well documented.
Yeah, we spoke about it the other day. It's technology. I mean, you would be not frightened of, say, Discovery 5 going wrong, but Discovery 3 now appears fairly simplistic, doesn't it?
Yeah, they're not so much simplistic, but the people know the systems now.
Like isolate.
Exactly.
Independent knowledge base.
Yes, yeah. It's not super duper scary now. You can have a little bit of a read up, and you can equip yourself with knowledge, and off you go. You can have a go yourself.
Do you know what I think would be really interesting? I've seen this a few times on YouTube where people buy a car like that, then take it to main dealer.
Oh, the old, yeah.
And see
I took my X to X and they said it needs 40,000 quid spending.
But I'm going to do it for £500.
Yeah,
kind of.
You could do that. The last, I've only owned one Discovery 3 actually, and I bought it from a neighbour who was basically tired of spending money on it. And that needed an air compressor, or it needed the compressor looking at. And I bought it. It was just before Christmas a few years ago. And it was very, very rough. It was not a nice car at all. I ended up doing basically all the stuff that Discovery 3s need over the years had essentially piled up, and they all needed doing at once. This thing shouldn't have had an MOT. It was ropey. It had, the tyres were worn unevenly. All the suspension bushes had it. The compressor had packed up. The airbag light was on. It was in a bad way. But because of, I'm lucky enough to have the experience, Discovery 3s were my bread and butter, really, when I was working at the main dealer. So I sort of know my way around them. It didn't take much money at all. It was 600 or 700 quid to bring it back up to, it passed its MOT with no advisories.
Sounds relatively cheap.
I mean, I did buy all brand new suspension arms. I got a used compressor. It was a brand new compressor, but the guy hadn't fitted it, and it was one of the cheap ones. And when I fitted it, I figured out why he didn't fit it, and it's because it would pump air into the system, but it couldn't vent it out. So as soon as you pressed up on the suspension height selection, it pumped the back of the car right up to the top, but then it couldn't vent the gallery. The gallery is like the tank in the compressor. It couldn't let the air back out again, so it would just stick there and put the
okay.
And all it was the exhaust valve, which is like the relief valve, if you like, on the compressor, was sticking. So I swapped the old one off the original compressor, which was worn out, and it was perfect after that. So I saved a few quid there.
So I remember when I had my Discovery 3, the compressor was failing, or they time out, don't they?
If they run constantly and get hot, then they...
And I think it didn't have a hole in any of the airbags, but I can't recall now, but it dropped to, whilst going down the road, it kind of dropped to access height.
Okay.
And it was like driving a car with no shock absorbers.
Well, you're on the bump stops then.
It was bouncing, and it was undrivable. The engine, the warning lights came on.
Yeah.
And bing, that horrible noise that they make. And it was bouncing up the road, and then I sort of stopped, turned the ignition. Someone told me this trick. I don't know if it's true. You might tell me. You turn the ignition on and off consecutively like 6 times, and it resets something.
Reset stuff. I've never tried it. It might be true.
Well, it got me home. It worked. But top tip.
That's the classic air suspension fault is you get a slow leak somewhere and you don't pick up on it. The compressor works overtime because it's trying to keep the thing at standard height all the time. Then that accelerates all the wear of the piston and the bore in the compressor, and then it cooks itself completely, and then that's it. You need a new one or need a rebuild. But that car, like I say, after I'd put that, it was not an insignificant amount of money, and a few days work into it, it was MOTable. It was in good shape. I bought second-hand wheels and tyres off marketplace because they would, I wanted to do it on a budget. I didn't want to spend a load of money on it. It had done 180 or something thousand miles when I bought it. But the state of it had been smoked in heavily. There was tobacco all over the dash.
Ruins.
The family had young kids, so they'd obviously had their way with the interior. So I actually got a good friend of mine, Ben. He's really into his detailing and like his car cleaning stuff. He's got all the professional equipment. He came around my house one Saturday in the summer, and we took pretty much the entire interior out, wet vacked all the carpet, cleaned the headliner, scrubbed everything, and it came up, considering the state it was in, and I didn't actually buy any new interior parts. It's sort of a testament to how well put together they are and the materials they use, it came up beautifully. It did still smell a bit smoky, but to look at, it was lovely. And actually, my friend bought that car from me because he had his truck written off and he needed a car quickly, and he was really happy with it. He drove it for about 6 months.
Discovery 3, so I mean, we talk about them, and I do really like them. I would have another one tomorrow. In fact, probably the nicest, most pleasant motoring I've ever done is a Discovery 3. But equally, I was paying a specialist to look after mine.
Yeah, sure.
The dearest motoring I've ever done.
There's just such a useful thing. I think they're one of those cars, once you've had one, you compare everything else to it because they're enormous inside. You can get seven people in them.
7 people, and I think the boot's flat, isn't it? I'm 6'3", and someone asked me once, how much space can you get in the back with the seats down? So I laid in there to show them, and they knew how tall I was, and said I could lay in it. You can double beds, it's kind of brilliant.
Actually, that reminds me, the whole 7-seater thing, when the guy who I sold the car to, one of my best mates, it was his stag do shortly after, and we all got in this Discovery 3 and went into town. 7 adults, and we were all like, people in the boot weren't stretching their legs out.
Massive.
Such a useful thing.
Yeah. It's a shame because the tax post 2006,
the tax is a killer.
It's about £730 a year. So it's a commitment owning that car now.
It's the same. There's so many Range Rover L322s now, like TDV8, like the ones you'd like to own, coming up for really, really tempting money. But as soon as you put in, check how much the tax is, you go, oh God, do I really want to be paying 700 or 800 quid a year to tax it? Probably not.
Yeah, but then if you look at cars now that, let's say, are £30 a year to tax or £150 a year to tax, they're a bit boring. And not very. I couldn't live with a car that was. Well, I could, but
the thing is, if you're looking for certainly a Discovery 3, you've got the cheap tax model, and then you've got late 2005, is it early 2006?
Yeah, so I think anything with 5405 on a Discovery 3 is the lower tax.
Yeah, that's right.
But you're still talking nearly £400.
Still not cheap, but a lot cheaper than the high tax. You're still getting exactly the same car. You're just not paying through the nose as badly to keep it on the road.
What's the deal with a Discovery 3 commercial?
They are cheaper still, I think.
Because the commercial rates, but couldn't you just put seats in the back?
Well, when they first came out, a lot of companies brought out that conversion, and they would sell you back seats that you could put in your Disco 3, and I think they now do them for Disco 4 as well. So technically you could, although it's a bit cheeky.
Yeah, I think it might be a bit.
I used to look after a Discovery 3 commercial, which had the seat conversion in the back, but they weren't proper Land Rover seats. It was like a bench seat, so it was probably one of the more affordable kits, and it wasn't very nice. It didn't fold completely flat like the proper passenger car does. The seats don't go down into the floor.
Oh, okay. So that defeats the object of a commercial.
Just really cumbersome and not very nice to use. So yeah, you could do it and you'd save a bit of money, but then how many years is it going to take you to pay off the seat conversion anyway? You see what I mean?
Yeah, the £730 tax, or 735, I think it might be. Yes, it is a lot of money. It's a lot of money for a lot of people. But it's a lot of car for the money. And really, let's be honest, the true cost of motoring isn't the fuel, it isn't the tax, it's depreciation.
Oh, without a doubt.
So if you buy a modern car, and I often hear this, my car's £30 a year to tax.
Yeah, but they're
paying £500 a month on PCP.
Yeah.
No. The true cost of motoring is depreciation.
It's very. I think it really depends on where your background is with vehicles. A lot of people grow up and are.
I haven't grown up.
No, nor have I. But do you know what I mean? Like their parents will have always had a car on finance, PCP, lease, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's if you grow up in that sort of mindset, you're always probably going to do the same thing. Do you see what I mean? Whereas if your parents own older cars or family friends or mates, whatever, and they go out and buy the best used car they can afford with the cash they've got and keep that and then replace it, then you're more likely to do the same.
Yeah, that's definitely how I was brought up. I think I was brought up to be very tight.
Okay.
Careful with my money.
You're not now.
No, I do spend on the right things.
Yeah, you do.
I think.
Which is important.
the right things for me.
Yeah, I agree. There's nothing worse. There's that buy nice or buy twice, isn't there? There's nothing worse than saving a few quid here and there, and then a year down the line you've got to buy the same thing again or a better version of it because you skimmed the first time.
I made a purchase yesterday.
What'd you buy?
Well, something for my camping trailer.
Really? Okay.
However, quite a significant spend for the day before payday, at least. An awning.
Oh, what sort of awning?
So it's a 270-degree awning from Tough Trek.
Oh, I like them.
So it's a Tough Trek.
The Batwing. Is it a Batwing?
No, they don't include the Batwing. I think he's got two. One's, well, Speedwing, I think he's got. But no, this is a TT02 270-degree. So it's 2 metres. The trailer is just shy of 2 metres.
Right.
And it goes all the way around the back. And it has the drop sides for the bargain price.
Oh, with the side panels as well?
It comes with the side panels. You don't have to use them. It's not a self-supporting awning because they're like £1,400.
You've got to use poles.
You have the poles,
Right.
Which even self-supporting on a windy-ish day, you'd need to use anyway.
Well, you've got the space anyway, haven't you?
So
trailer.
a couple of poles. The poles are built into the poles would be built into the actual awning on the side of the trailer.
Got you.
And then, so it wraps around 270 and it's got sort of, I think they're Velcroed on and then zipped on sides
Right.
for £725. Half the price of a self-supporting awning.
That's pretty good, isn't it?
That's a whole room on the side.
They do.
Yeah.
They do really make a difference. Any kind of awning, even like your standard roll-out awning that goes out the side of a vehicle or whatever, you don't realise quite how much extra space, usable space they make until you've got one.
Well, we were using the trailer for the first time, as we spoke about the other day on one of our podcasts. Camping's great when the sun's shining.
Yeah.
But if it's raining and you're exposed to the elements, like cooking on the tailgate, without a cover, had that rained, it would have been a whole different experience.
It's miserable.
So having that room on the side and the back, somewhere to sit on an evening.
Yeah.
Somewhere for you to eat all your burgers when you're in charge of catering.
My sides are split instead.
Yeah.
I didn't see you laughing when you were winding them down your neck. Anyway,
Working long hours.
didn't we know about it?
So that was my yesterday's purchase with my own earned money.
Oh, good on you. Yeah, I think.
Now I'm bankrupt again.
Oh well, 'tis the way.
It's the way of it, land of owner.
Exactly. Trying to think what I bought recently. Oh, I've got something coming, but I can't say too much about it just yet.
Oh, what?
Yeah.
Not a Discovery 3 with a V8.
Oh no, I've got to resist that.
I would.
I've got to. I've moved house recently, and my garage needs a floor because currently the floor is not very good. One of the previous owners used to build kit cars in the garage, so weight wasn't too much of a problem.
Okay.
But if I want to do Land Rover stuff in there, I think the floor currently, I haven't had it up yet, but is pallets with sheets of wood on top, and it's not very good. So
yeah, cement is not cheap.
This is it. I've got to save up my money and get some concrete in.
I did my own garage base for the garage.
Yeah.
And trying to get a builder to quote around Lincolnshire is sometimes difficult.
Well, I think
they consider it a fairly small job.
Yeah. Well, I'll do the same as you probably and dig it all out and then try and, make I can't remember what they call it. What's the way you put the wood in?
Shuttering.
Is it shuttering? Where you put the wood in the side to stop the concrete.
Yeah, shutter up the side.
Yeah,
yes.
Clearly a professional.
Well, if you look at my concrete floor, I think you'll find it's fairly level.
Yeah, no, you've done a good job. That's what I mean. But I'll probably do that myself and then ring up a concrete company and then get one of their mini mix lorries to come and actually pour it all in, and then I'll have to worry about it after that.
You see, I couldn't get the lorry up the driveway enough, so he put the chute out and we were having to barrow it in.
Oh, wow.
And it was and they give you 45 minutes waiting time, which basically means they start charging you after 45 minutes for the delivery.
Right, okay.
I forget how much. Anyway, we were running and we did it in 45 minutes.
Wow.
And he said, right, time's up, boys. And there was 3 of us, well, 2 boys and a girl.
Running up and down the driveway with
3 wheelbarrows.
I bet that was pretty. Bet you felt that the next morning.
What, me doing some manual work?
No, I know, unheard of.
Yeah.
But no, the workshop floor. You guys pretty much what I need. So you can come over and do mine if you want.
Oh,
You can repay me for all the mechanic work I do for you.
We could
That'd be
do
good, wouldn't it?
do a trade-off.
Trade-off.
Right? Yeah.
You are in significant debt to me
Yes.
now. So
You know how much the local garages will charge for Land Rover mechanicals? I do owe you a garage floor.
bring your wheelbarrow.
Yeah, no, it's still there. Just put a bit of air in the tyre and crack it.
Yeah. Oh, exciting. No, I can't think other than
So the purchase then, your purchase.
Yeah.
You're going to tell me what
not
it
yet,
is.
no. Because it'll be in the mag as well. I don't want to ruin the surprise for everyone.
Big purchase?
Yeah. Probably the biggest thing you can buy for a Land Rover. That'll be your clue.
Okay. Well, I'll say no more because I've got no idea.
All right. That's good then. It shows you either don't listen to me or you've forgotten already. So probably both.
Probably both.
But yeah, the going back to our spider scenario, the garage at the moment, normally, you might be a bit worried about security with keeping tools and things, bits and pieces in a garage. Well, I haven't got to worry about that because the size of the spiders that I've found in that garage.
Then they'll have a timber garage,
Yeah, they're big. They are. You wouldn't want to knock one pint over, though, put it that way. They are substantial in size and stature.
Yeah. See, they reckon they don't hurt you, but I'm just not keen.
I wouldn't want to find out.
No. I remember one of my neighbours got bitten by a river spider once.
River spider?
Yeah, they're like, they look quite small. They've got spindly legs.
I've never heard of them.
And his arm was like 3 times the size it should be. He had a really bad allergic reaction.
That's one of the good things about living in the UK. One of the few, I shouldn't say that. One of the good things about living in the UK is you're not likely to get bitten by anything that's going to significantly hurt you. But if you're now saying otherwise, then I'm pretty disappointed.
Yeah, I don't know what happened, but he had a bad reaction. I think spiders can bite.
I'm sure they can. Well, that's...
But they do bite.
Humans, though, they wouldn't go
normally.
Human, sure.
No. You see, that means, say, spiders don't like to live in damp places. So that means your garage is probably quite dry.
Oh, that's good. Every cloud and all that.
I don't get spiders in my house.
Oh, what, at all?
No, very rare.
Because your house is really damp.
It's old, not damp, but yeah, there might be a bit of, could do. It is old, and yes, concrete poured onto dirt floors, but not very deep. So yeah, probably a bit of rising damp here and there.
Okay.
But yeah, it keeps them away.
Well, like I say, every cloud and all that. So, yeah, I don't know. I've got to put myself off buying any more Land Rover projects in the short term.
Well, it's not like you finished the last 2, is it, really?
No.
That was a bit of a dig, really.
But
I can talk.
You're not right. Yeah, but
I just remembered I have a rolling chassis in my garage. I haven't put a spanner on for about 3 years.
You don't get rid of yours. My thing is, my Range Rover Classic, which I got a few years ago, and I got that off a friend, ex-colleague, who said, "Oh, I've had it years. I used to drive it every day, and then it failed MOT on the boot floor, so I parked it up. I think it's quite solid. Would you like to buy it?" And he was hassling me for ages, and I never went to look at it. And then all of a sudden, I thought one day, "Oh, have you still got that Range Rover?" So I messaged him, went to look at it, and yes, the boot floor was rotten, and he'd actually cut the boot floor out to replace it and bought a new one.
That was nice of him.
Unfortunately, in the time it had been parked, the rest of it had dissolved. So, I didn't pay a huge amount for it, and I had all this, enthusiasm when I first got it to really sort of get used to welding bodywork, but actually, even after spending a reasonable amount of money on all the repair panels, it became very clear that this was way too far gone. There wasn't all the places Range Rover Classics rust that you would check for if you were buying one. It had rotted everywhere. The sills, inner and outer sills, rear arch.
She's far too far gone.
And that actually, I ended up moving that on to LRM contributor Tim Hammond, who is well known for top of the line Range Rover Classic restorations. So it didn't go.
So what? He's not going to restore it though, is he?
No. He's used it as a donor. It was at the end of. It wouldn't have been worth him restoring because there's so many better ones out there to start with. and he's already got loads on anyway. So, yeah, he's used... The interior on it was lovely and the panels were lovely, which is why I bought it in the first place, thinking I can make this nice again. And if it was mechanical work, I probably could have done, but it was way too much fabrication, bodywork, paint. I just couldn't... It didn't make sense.
So you talk about rust. I mean, the reason why that Land Rover is in my garage, my project, the rolling chassis, when I looked at that vehicle, it came up in the LRM classifieds, and I'd been on holiday, came back, and hey, it was advertised. I said, well, that must be sold, because it was B-Reg 90, and naturally aspirated diesel. And I went to have a look at it with my screwdriver and my torch, and the screwdriver kept going into the chassis, just different places. The guy goes, check it over, and was happy for me to have a poke.
A bit tender in places.
Yeah, and I laid underneath it, and I really didn't want another rusty project. And I said to myself, I think I said to my wife as well, I said, if this screwdriver goes to this chassis one more time, we're not buying it. Well, of course it did, didn't it? And then I said, no, one more chance. I think I had about 5 more chances. And I said,
talking yourself into...
And then the chap goes, what do you reckon then? I said, yeah, I think we'll take this.
I can see Louise's face now.
She's looked at us saying, you thought you said you weren't going to have it 5 holes ago.
Out your mind.
And then, who doesn't like it? I like poking holes in rust, especially if I'm not the one having to...
I don't mind poking holes in rust as long as the rust isn't on one of my cars.
Stop buying rusty Land Rovers.
Well, I had a shock the other day because Freelander 2s are starting to get a bit of a reputation for getting crispy at the back of the sills and in the rear arches. And I thought, I haven't looked at mine properly. I'd better take the sill trims off and the inner arches out and things like that. So I did, had it up on the ramp and, stripped it out. And it's not bad.
But it's not good.
Starting.
That's telling me it's not good.
Starting. So I wire brushed it all back, and then I put rust converter on it and painted it, and then put some rust protection stuff on. But yeah, I don't know how many more years that's got in it before it needs welding, which is annoying because, for a long time they were fine.
They're getting old. I mean, your car's, 17 years old?
It's an 07, so what are we in now?
Yeah.
Yeah, it is, isn't it?
You see, I still see 07. I still think that's a new car.
When you see them on the road, they don't look old. That's when I'm discovering the 3s don't look old either, or Range Rovers are that vintage. They look reasonably modern still.
They do.
Which, is a good thing. But then also, I think there's a big jump between the pre and the post-facelift Freelanders. They're sort of... The Freelander 2 looks really nice as a facelift, and I might facelift mine at some point if the rust holds off long enough.
And yet, but the facelifts aren't that expensive now, are they?
No, they come down quite a bit. It's again the tax thing and running costs. People are thinking, do I really need this? Could I make do with a slightly smaller car that doesn't cost us? Because Freelander 2s, doesn't matter what age you go for, they're all going to do about 30 to the gallon. Autos slightly worse if you drive them around town a lot. But
yeah, I seem to recall 32 out of my other facelift as you made.
Oh yeah, was yours manual?
No, it's auto.
Oh, really?
2010.
Right.
And great car. Really, just a nice car. The thing is, though, Freelander tends to be owned, the majority of Freelander 2s are owned by non-Land Rover enthusiasts.
Yeah, a lot of them are.
And they'll consider that car getting old, or they'll consider it being expensive to tax in comparison to, I don't know, a Dacia Duster.
Yeah,
they'll compare something like for like, and they think, we best move this on. It's getting a bit
long in the tooth.
It's like 60,000 miles. You think, no.
But the upside to that is there's a few Freelander 2s coming up that are really low mileage that have been looked after. People sell them just because they think they're getting old, but really they got tons of life left in them.
Yeah, well, yours have done what?
203,000 now.
Yeah, see, that's
on its original turbo and injectors as well, which is, we were talking to Gareth, weren't we, at Empire about that, and he was like, I'll be on its last legs, and he is right, because when you start it up in the morning, the turbo does whine a little bit, but I'll keep going until it properly packs up, and then I'll have to get underneath it and change it.
Oh, you won't just change the car?
I'll keep the car. It's had everything.
Well, you may as well then.
There's no point. It's
less of the devil you know.
Less of the devil.
Unless someone rings you and says, I've got another car.
Well, I'll keep my plan always was, because I know what that car has had, which is most things. I would keep that for as long as possible, and then if Russ does properly take hold of it, which I don't think it will, I'll buy a newer one.
I could teach to weld.
Yeah, I could just
Said me never.
Miller fabrication over it.
Yeah.
I could take all the good bits off that, and then I'd have loads of spares if I bought a slightly newer one.
Yeah.
Because it has had like everything: recon gearbox, recon rear diff, front suspension arms, drop links, shocks.
That's all the expensive
wheels,
stuff.
tyres. There's not much it wants for, and that's why it drives so well for a high mileage car. I was thinking, talking of tax and Land Rovers, of getting my wife a Freelander 2 TD4E, which is the front wheel drive one, because they were introduced back when they were new for companies to make cheaper models to tax, so that they get them on their company car scheme.
I know why you think you might want that car.
Why?
Because you live in the fens.
Roads are absolutely awful, and her poor car does take a beating, so I'm thinking something with a bit more ground clearance, but not necessarily four-wheel drive, might be the way forward. Or, again, if I can find an early Disco Sport with the 2.2, maybe one of them, but we'll see. They're quite nice to work on, the Freelander 2s and things like that. People are having a go. You see it quite often on social media, people get stuck in.
Be interested to know how many of our listeners actually own Freelander 2s. Because we always think the Defender is the one that people spend money on, but they probably run Freelander 2s at the same time.
Yeah, there's quite a lot we talk to a lot of people at events, and they say, I've got my Defender's sort of my special car, my high days and holidays, or going on adventures, but every day I drive X, be that Range Rover, Freelander, Evoque, any of those things, which is quite interesting, really. And it's sometimes that sort of daily driver, to coin a phrase, stays completely standard and they just look after it, or sometimes they're modified as well.
Well, Freelander 2s, I saw at the show the other day, muddy mods.
Yeah,
Freelander 2s, and they do make them look really cool.
It doesn't take a lot to make them really smart.
Very subtle.
Which actually, they've just started doing Evoques as well now, because a lot of the architecture is the same on Freelander 2 and early Evoque. The suspension and everything is very similar. Muddy Mods now do all sorts of bits for an Evoque.
Yes, so I saw in the latest issue of the magazine.
Latest issue, feature of the week.
Feature of the week. Is that feature of the week?
Feature of the week.
The surprise.
Segued me into that beautiful feature of the week.
I tee it up, you knock it down.
That's the one, is how to beef your Evoque up to make it look slightly more off-roady, bit of a lift kit, wheel spacers, chunky, all-terrain tyres. It completely transforms how it looks.
So I won't lie, when I saw that feature, guess what was my next move?
What's that?
I was straight onto
how much is
Classified? I was straight onto Classifieds looking for Freelander, looking for Evoques.
Yeah, they're not quite as they're not quite as practical, purely practical as a Freelander 2, but the Range Rover badge isn't just a badge, if you know what I mean. When you drive one, the soundproofing and everything and the fit and finish in the interior is so much better. You don't really, unless you drive one back to back, it's hard to explain.
Better what in the Freelander?
No, in the Evoque.
In the Evoque.
They're so much more
plush.
They're plusher, but they feel more, even though the Freelander's pretty good, they feel a lot better screwed together.
Tell you what I drove once and it came in on test from Land Rover, was when the convertible Evoque came out. It was bright orange.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
What was your opinion of that, Steve?
It didn't make me feel very comfortable.
In what way? Physically or driving it around?
I was sitting next to Patrick, our old editor. Yeah. It was me and him going along in an Evoque with the roof down, bright orange.
I bet you got loads of looks.
Yes, but not.
How was the car though? Was it all right? I've never driven one, I don't think.
Yeah, not for me, but I could see the appeal to somebody else.
I honestly think 3-door Evoque and Evoque convertible will be classics in the future because, relatively speaking,
Victoria Beckham designed the interior.
She designed more than interior. I think she had a hand in.
Does she? Does she?
I visited a Victoria Beckham Evoque once at D. I know I keep banging on about how I used to work at a Land Rover dealer, but they were £60,000 new.
Oh.
And the clock in the centre of the dash had diamante around it. Yeah. And it came with a Louis Vuitton luggage set. Nice. 60 grand for an Evoque.
What's it's worth now?
I doubt there's many for sale. I doubt they sold many. But again, for that very reason, I reckon early 3-door Evoques and probably the convertibles in a good few years' time will be...
They stopped making the convertible, didn't they? They didn't last.
They didn't really sell, but that's why they will be rare. I don't know. Sometimes things are rare because no one wanted them when they were new, and they will continue to not want them as they get older.
But like I don't know, an Allegro or something like that.
Yeah, but Allegros were like cheap family runabouts, weren't they?
Yeah.
Like a Nissan Sunny.
Oof. Yeah.
They weren't really sought after when they were new, and they're definitely... I had one for a bit. Anyway,
did you?
By the by.
Oh, wow.
There's yet another car that I bought when, you know how I seem to get this habit of, I have a Land Rover that needs a bit of work, so I think, I must buy another car to run around in while I do the work on the Land Rover. That was the Sunny's job, basically. I bought this Sunny, one owner from new, in a garage, paid 400 quid for it. It had done 21,000 miles from new, and it was immaculate. And I used it for about 6 months while doing various jobs on my Defender that I had at the time, and then I sold it. But a very boring car, and I didn't make much money on it when I sold it because they're not really that desirable, but functional.
Yeah, I once bought a car where when I had my ex-military 90 years and years ago, I bought a Peugeot 309.
Oh,
the back doors were seized up. They hadn't been opened.
Really?
The back seats had never been sat in.
wow.
Old, I think it'd got 40-something thousand miles on the clock. An old gentleman had owned it from new, full Peugeot history. I think it's £550.
Yeah.
Perfect motor trim, and
Maybe that is the antidote. If you've got a Land Rover and you love it and you don't want to use it every day,
buy Nissan Sunny.
buy something old but dependable, low mileage. Drive that. Doesn't matter if it gets scratched or dented, and cheap tax and insurance and things like that.
Possibly.
However,
Offsets. That'll offset that Discovery 3.
yeah, I could be able to afford to buy and tax a V8 Discovery 3 then, wouldn't I?
If you bought a Sunny.
I don't think I'll buy a Sunny. I think I'll stick with the Freeland. It's a good car.
Definitely.
But yeah, it's we shouldn't be encouraging people to not drive Land Rovers, should we? That's the thing.
Not unless we want to launch a magazine called Nissan Sunny Monthly.
Yeah, I don't think that would do well. Do you?
No.
That would be niche. That would be very niche. But yeah, I mean, talking of niche, actually, I've had a real sort of glut of stuff to put on my social media channels, which is stuff that you might not necessarily see elsewhere. I mean, I've obviously gone to photograph them in places, and I'm sure a lot of our listeners will be able to guess where those places are, but a lot of stuff that maybe you think, I forgot that existed. So please give us a follow on Instagram and Facebook, and you can feast your eyes on a tantalising tidbit of Land Roverness every single day.
Yeah, you've got a lovely job, haven't you? Photograph Land Rovers.
Yeah, it's all right, actually.
Post them. Yeah.
I enjoy it. People seem to like it. Get a good bit of feedback.
Yeah.
Yeah. Same with this, really. Hopefully you enjoyed previous podcasts we've done. Like I say, we got reasonable feedback on the first one, didn't we? So we'll keep on sitting down, avoiding proper work, sitting down and chatting about Land Rovers for however long we manage to before we lose our voices.
And of course, we'll have readers or listeners.
Listeners, questions.
Say readers. You see, this podcast thing is all so new.
I know. It's fun.
We have listeners now.
Yeah. Actually, did have one. What was it? Yesterday it came in, so it was right close to the wire. A guy called Archie. He's just got a 90. It's a hard top 90. And he's asking, should he fit a soft top to it?
Yes. There you go.
You don't want to know any more circumstances. You just go, yes.
Soft top 90s are cool.
Right. Okay. Well, that's that. Well done, Archie. That's your question answered by Steve Miller. Yeah, just rip the hard top off, put a soft top on it.
I would keep the hard top.
Oh, so now you're backtracking.
No, the reason being is when you have a soft top 90, you think a hard top's better.
So it's like a vicious circle. You always think the grass is always green.
Mm-hmm. I've been there, done it.
I would say soft tops are better because they tend to keep water out better. Funnily enough.
They are more watertight.
And they reduce noise. You don't get the sort of tinny resonance you get with a hard top.
The drumming noise.
The drumming. But
it depends where you live.
Security's not great with a soft top, and nor is getting in and out the back of a soft top. I find it even with my 109, which I normally have a 3/4 canvas on the back. If you want to quickly nip in and get something, it's a bit of a pain faffing about with the rope all the time.
Yeah, see, then you're into spending more money on having one of the ones with the zip sides.
Oh yeah, like a mohair.
The mohair ones, but
style.
yeah, you're into larger sums of money. And the soft top conversion then is not cheap.
Again, I think it depends what you're doing with it. It's if you're driving it every day, you're driving it different places where you worry that it may be a target for thievery, and you're in and out of it grabbing stuff all the time. Probably I'd keep hardtop. If you don't use it, all the time, or you're willing to put up with a bit of faffing, getting in and out the back to get things out. And I suppose if it's a 90, you won't have a separate cab like a pickup, so you can probably reach back a certain distance and grab things rather than have to go around the back. But
they're not ideal.
So you've gone from definitely do it to they're not ideal.
Yeah, that's the nature of the beast. No, do you know what?
What's that?
I've solved Archie's problems.
What's that then?
He keeps the hardtop and buys a second Land Rover.
Best of both
as a soft top.
Well, if that's not consumer advice, I don't know what is.
That's what I would do if I could get away with it.
Brilliant. Thanks, Steve. I'm sure Archie will be chuffed as nuts with that response. Just spend another X amount, thousands of pounds on the second vehicle. Yeah, brilliant. Well, I think after that fine piece of advice from Steve here, we're going to wrap this one up. So thanks again for joining us, and we'll see you on the next one. Bye for now.
Goodbye.